What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. I thought today we'll do a bit of a debrief, but more importantly, how in a short space of time, 24 days to be exact, can you go from running a 1 hour 3 Hyrox, which was pretty good, to a 57 minute 40 second or whatever it was, 47 seconds. That was 24 days. Now, I want to debrief this because I think there's a lot of lessons to take away, especially for you guys who've got some upcoming events, whether it's a run, a park run, a Hyrox, maybe the CrossFit Open. There is a variety of different lessons in that short space of time, to my first race to the second race, that I want to share on today's podcast. Let's get into it. So if you didn't know, rewind a couple of months, me and Jill, we done our second Hyrox together, and we thought we'd put in for the balloted tickets because it'd be quite cool to do one in the UK. Long story short, I ended up getting 2 male double tickets instead of mixed doubles. So I said to Scott, I drafted him in and was like, here, do you fancy training for this? He's just retired from professional boxing. And for 10 weeks, maybe just over 10 weeks, I put together a pretty solid training plan in terms of increasing my running, getting him stronger at certain stations, getting us more efficient, conditioning. And yeah, we went to town. And over those 10 weeks, I don't know if you guys get this, but when you start training towards something, you start envisioning yourself in the race when it comes to race day, and you're like, I'm going to fucking win this. Like, I'm feeling really good. So I was getting more and more confident in the lead up to Manchester. So much so, the original game plan was to go sub 60. And then very quickly it became, here, we could try and do 55 minutes here, or 56, 57 minutes. And then it became, what do we have to do to win? So all this sort of stuff came out the first prep round, and put a lot into that, definitely put a lot into that. So fast forward to the event at the end of January there, Hyrox Manchester comes about. We're excited. 2 weeks prior to this, for whatever daft reason, I ran 100 kilometres around a track and benched 100 kilos 100 times. Why? To be honest, I felt like I had something to prove to myself. I thought it'd be cool to do a challenge. And there was a big ego part of me that was like, I'll be fine. I've got Hyrox 2 weeks after this. I'll be fully recovered for then. Now, I'm not going to use that as an excuse, because I don't think it did necessarily hinder me on the day. But what it did do, it put a halt in the training, because so if we take Glasgow, for example, Glasgow Hyrox is coming up in 2 weeks. Your training prep is not about throwing everything at what you can to try and make up for lost time. The volume should be gradually increasing. When I done that ridiculous challenge, that put that on the pause. So training volume was building up and building up. Then there was a big massive spike in terms of activity for that day, and then everything had to drop because I had to recover from that event. So that was the first downfall. That was the dip. So that was 1 week out of training. Tried to jump back in too soon. Got a bit kind of strainy feelings in my ankle. Nothing too drastic, but just something, you know how when things just don't feel right. So I knew I pushed myself way too quickly. And then we had the week before competing, and I thought, yeah, fuck it, let me just throw things in. So we done mixed workouts where it was like station workouts into run, getting us kind of adapted to what we're doing. And we had a lot of hype, a lot of experience, a wee bit of nervousness, but more importantly, excited to show off the fitness that we had. So we go out, we race, and if you've listened to the previous episode, you'll know what happened here. Basically went out too quickly, hammered it. I was in a dark place mentally, because I was thinking to myself, you've just trained so fucking hard for this for 10 weeks. You're letting him down. Scott was so excited. He was at the gates, he was gone, and I was trying to catch him, but there was just, I don't know, I guess it just comes down to excitement. Now, that being said, we still walked away with 1 hour, 3 minutes and 13 seconds, which fucking pretty good. I'd never done one with Scott before. Me and Jill's best time is about the hour 10 mark, so that was pretty cool to see. Right, I was clutching on for dear life 10 minutes in, redlining, should I say, and just really struggling to get moving in those stations and try to get my runs back up. So we came off the back of that, and Scott instantly was like, right, we need to do another one. let's stick to the game plan this time. Let's see how we get on. So we booked Rotterdam, which was on Thursday, just gone there. And the training on the lead up to that, like I said, it was only 24 days. But what it did allow me to do was be consistent with the volume. It's like running X amount this week, doing X amount of track sessions, X amount of workout sessions. Next week, like increasing that a little bit. Again, week after, increasing that a wee bit. And then it became race week. So in terms of fitness, there wasn't much gained in the strategy with the workouts that we were doing, right? And I think this is a very important lesson because it's all to do with how you reserve your energy in the day. So how on earth can you go from an hour 3 to 57 in that short space of time? Like, what is going on there? Because on both races, I gave it my all, but where you apply that energy is lesson number 1 here, okay? So fast forward to Rotterdam. The game plan this time round was to not just go all out. You will get to your first event, your 10th event, and when that buzzer's counting down for whatever it is that you're playing, there's the adrenaline rush kicks in, and it's very, very hard, especially in something where you're competing against other people. So if you take a run, for example, everyone's out the gates like boom, flying away, but the guys who win is those who have the strategy, or those who don't gas out too quickly, is those who can stick with their game plan, stick by their game plan, and see that strategy through. And that's ultimately the main thing that we've done this time. What I've got here is both results from last time and this time. So we were 94th in our age group, 30 top 31%, and overall we were 206th on the day in top 34%, which, like, I was buzzing with. But I think because the initial goal was to go under the hour, that was almost taking it away from us, or taken away from me. Like, I think this is a very hard thing, which I guess is another side point. If you're doing Glasgow in a couple of weeks, if this is your first one, like, I know there's going to be a ton of pressure to get a specific time. In here, look, you might be someone like me, someone like Scott, where there is a drive there to go for that number 1 spot. And if that's you, then cool, all power to you. Give it your best and go after that. Some of these later points might be better lessons for you to take. But if it's your first time and you're just like, right, I'm just here to get some numbers on the board because I've never done one before. I want to experience it. I want to see how well I do compared to everyone else. And let's go out and see what that's about. Have fun with it, right? And I was saying this to Scott so many times that his brother Sam was competing. He done his first solo as well. I was like, make sure that when you're running around that course or when you're doing the event, take time to take it in, because you'll never, ever, ever be able to experience your first experience ever again. And we're always wishing for these different things. And that's something that I was a hell of a lot more present during this time than I was in Manchester, because each one of these events should be fun, it should be special. It's the dopamine hit that I get from I guess life. Most people, they'll go out drinking, they'll go to football games, they'll do some of these other things. I'm not interested in those things, but one thing I love is fitness, and I've found a part in fitness, whether it's Hyrox, Athex, CrossFit. I found like the competing side of things gives me a lot of buzz and a lot of joy, and you need to be able to take that in. So when you're doing it, your first one, there's a reason why you booked that in the first place. Maybe there's a bit of FOMO from everyone else doing it. Maybe you've seen your friends do it and you're like, yeah, I want to get in that. So for whatever your reason is, when you're going through that, do it with a smile. Like, yes, you're going to be in a pain cave and all this sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, it's your first one. Like, fucking have fun. And then from there, you can draft a game plan and devise a strategy if it's something that you want to push forward, if it's something you want to kind of redo. But yeah, that's kind of lesson number 1 here. But lesson number 2, I guess, is how on earth do you, specifically what strategy worked for us differently to allow us to get that time. I thought we would be right in the cusp of 59 minutes, if I'm being brutally honest, by sticking to that game plan. Now, you have to be honest with yourself on your splits, right? So when you're running, particularly this is more for Hyrox, or maybe I guess even park runs here. When you're doing your runs, you'll know a pace that you can hold that pushes you out your comfort zone. So a couple of weeks before that, this was the only thing I'd done in training that gave me a lot of, I guess, value and confidence that I could maybe push towards a pace. So I decided to run a 10K and see what my 10K time would be. And my goal going into that 10K was, can I hold anywhere between 4:15 and 4:30? If I was being honest, I would have liked to hold 4, but I knew that maybe use a little bit of a push compared to where my fitness levels were when it came to my run. So we've done that, got 42 minutes, I think it was, so roughly about 4:15, 4:20. That gave me an idea of what pace I wanted to try and hit for the first 3 runs. And the reason I'm saying the first 3 runs is because you're out the gates, your laps is usually the longest lap to start with. You then coming into the ski erg, where if you're doing a doubles, you're kind of giving it a lot, so you're rattling it, and you don't really have much time to let the heart rate drop down. You then go into another fast-paced run, coming back into the sled push, and again, your sled push times, like we're trying to get under a minute 30 there, a minute 15 if we can. So we're literally driving our legs as best as we can, as fast as we can to get in and out of that station. You're into that run, then it's sled pull. So 5 very demanding stations, or then your 6 run, 6 very demanding stations. And for me, when it came to the burpees, I had a bit of a more advantage just because Scott was going to do a good chunk of them. He has crazy durability when it comes to getting down and leaping forward, right? I think I'd done 10, maybe 12. I can't remember how many it was we ended up doing, but in the middle chunks, he started and I finished. And that's where I knew I could bring my heart rate down. That was the only thing I asked of kind of Scott this time. I was like, right, I know you want to push the runs because this is the thing. If you might be the stronger runner, listen to this, and you've got doubles coming up. You might be the weaker runner, whatever side you are. There is no point trying to push more than what you can handle. Manchester is an example of that. So I've got the comparisons in terms of times, right? So run 1, Manchester, 2 minutes, 51 seconds. Rotterdam, 4 minutes, 5 seconds. So there's about a minute and 14 difference between those 2 splits. Now, in all honesty, Rotterdam, I guess, could be considered a little bit longer on that first one. But at the end of the day, they're 2 different courses. It's going to be slightly different. We come into the ski erg, and in Manchester, we hit a 3-minute 30 on the ski erg. In Rotterdam, we hit 3-minute 32. Now, this is quite important, right? So there's 2 seconds of difference here, but I felt way much better on that ski erg than I did in Manchester. Why? Because our strategy in Manchester was you rip it hard as you can for 10 rips, and then swap. That wasn't long enough to let our heart rate drop down. So the difference that we done for this part was we done 150 metres each. That seemed to be the sweet spot for me. I'd say I'm the better. I've got more output when it comes to the ski erg for the split time, because it meant I think I was rowing 1 minute 30 500 metre splits on that every time I had taken over. Towards the back half it got a wee bit more challenging, but that was I guess the first part was the biggest difference. So on this race we're still 1 minute and 14 seconds down at this point, right? I guess 1 minute 14 seconds. Then we go into run 2. So game plan for me and Scott was we're going to hold these runs at 4 minutes, 4:15, 4:30. They're the 3 different paces that I'll call out if I feel like I'm really struggling. I need to try and get my heart rate back a bit, because they were comfortable paces to run at. I would always say, depending on the track that you're going to or the course that you're racing, that first lap is hell, right? But the pain does pass because you get back into your running flow. But for the first lap in Rotterdam, it was 2.8 laps, so very similar to Manchester. Once we had lapped that in once, it was right, get back up to that pace that you need to. The first lap is just about getting those legs moving, because the pain does pass. That lactic acid does kind of go away a little bit. So this is where it gets interesting. Manchester, we then go from running a 2:51 to 4:19. Not too bad. In Rotterdam, we come out that and we hit the course hard and we run a 3:58. So a lot stronger in terms of that second run, and we gain a couple of seconds back there. So then we get into the sled push, and this is where I was kicking myself, because this was my strongest station in Manchester. I got to that sled push, red lining, heart rate at its max heart rating is at 187 beats. Never had my heart rate that high before. just absolutely flatlined, went to push the slide, and I was like, what the fuck, I've got nothing. How can someone who weighs 95 kilos not move this sled? Like, don't get me wrong, it was moving, it just wasn't moving as fast. It felt like it was about 400 bricks, 400 bricks, I know when I said bricks, 400 kilos on top of that, and it was just struggling to budge. So Scott had to do half and half of that one. Which wasn't the game plan on the day, and we left with 1 minute 45 seconds, which ain't bad time, like, if I'm being honest. But see, when you're in training and you're doing the sled and you know you can get 120 and all that sort of stuff, that's the first mental fuck up, right? That's the first seed that's planted in your brain of, oh, something's not right here, you're struggling. And I remember coming out the sled in Manchester thinking to myself, and I remember shouting to Scott, I'm fucked, I'm going to need to, like, slow this down. And he's like, okay, right, no worries, like, fucking come on, big man, let's go. And I just thought, I've got nothing in my legs. So we fast forward to Rotterdam. We come out that one with a much better time at 1 minute 21 seconds, simply because Scott took the first half. As soon as I took over, like, it felt, oh man, I can't tell you how much better. That was the first confidence boost, if I'm being honest, because I picked that slide and I ran with it, and I was like, this is fucking easy. And then we swapped over and done our thing with that. So we come out that station. Legs are obviously, that's the first one where you feel your quads, and try to move those legs. You're like, there's a part within you that's like, right, just walk it off. But you're so much better to run. Like, just get the legs running, even if it's a lighter pace. Getting the legs running, kind of shaking them off that way, you're going to save a hell of a lot more time. So we come out the slide push into that run, which then was a 4:13. Now in Manchester, this is where just shit hit the fan for me. We're 12 minutes into the race at this point, and we are 5 minutes and 4 seconds to run the third run in Rotterdam. As I said, 4:13. So this is where the breaking point, literally the biggest difference up until this point, is we're reserved on our pace. And sticking to the game plan. The game plan to run about a 4:15 kilometre pace. In Manchester, it was like, right, just run hard, run fast. Scott was like, just try and keep up to me. So him being the better runner, me being the lesser runner, I guess. This is where this starts to show. So if you're doing doubles, you got someone who is a quicker runner, make sure they're staying back, because if they're pushing you too much as being the slower runner, like, you're going to end up in a position like me. You think you've got the grit and all that sort of stuff, but that grit, I tell you, like, you can't just magic an ability up. It's like me going, this is a very good analogy actually, and it's so strange that I never done this, because again, being a guy, being in Manchester, a very competitive venue, the ego comes out and it's like, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to try and run a 3:30 kilometre just because I know all these people who are doing it. Why the fuck am I doing that? Because I've managed to do it in a 400 metre track session. I've not managed to do it for a kilometre. So absolutely arrogant. And it's the same when you go into the gym. You're like, yeah, I'm just going to fuck 100 kilos on this bar. And you're like, have you ever done 100 kilo squat before? Nah. Then why? Like, do we not want to just start with, first of all, can we squat? Yeah, I can squat. Right, okay. What's the most you've squatted before? 50 kilo. Right, so you're just going to double it. That's pretty much what I had done in Manchester. So as we go through this, like, there's not really much of a difference. But not that there's not much of a difference, but this was the biggest impact, right? Everything else was pretty much the same, right? So we run 4:13. We come into the sled pull. Sled pull was only 9 seconds faster than Manchester, but at the end of the day, it was kind of in the middle of where our time should be. Looking back at that one, I don't know if there was any more we could have done. It might be that I just start with that just to kind of get the gates going, and then swap over, or we don't swap over as much just to save a little bit more time. But end of the day, like, still pretty impressed, still pretty happy with that time. So we come out the sled pull in Manchester and we run on our 5 minute kilometre. We come out the sled pull in Rotterdam and we run a 4:13 again. So very happy with the pace. Things are going well at this point. We then get to burpee broad jumps. And interestingly enough, the burpees were slower here than they were in Manchester. I think it's the course. I think it's, I generally don't know what it is down to, because I didn't do much burpees in Manchester. Scott done a big chunk of them. But yeah, anyway, after the burpees, we run a 4 minute 41 in Manchester. And then in Rotterdam, we run a 4:14. So we're like 30 seconds quicker on the runs at this point. And I remember Manchester, because that was the first bit of break that I got, so I got my heart rate back a bit, so I got a wee bit more power in my legs and started to kind of regain this second wind. Coming into the roar, managed to roll 10 seconds quicker, which I guess is nothing in the grand scheme of things. That felt okay. Like, the row is the halfway point of the race, so you're in that roar and you're like, right, fuck, we're at the halfway point, let's go. And at this point, we are 30 minutes into the race, right? So I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be fucking tight for 60 minutes. And it was, like, don't get me wrong, up until this point, it absolutely was. But again, the efficiency getting off that rower, one thing, or how me and Scott split it, was he does the first 250, I'll do 500, he finishes 250. There might be an argument there to say that you're wasting a lot of time on the swaps, just one do one half and the second do the other half. But Scott, being the stronger runner, he's in the station first. It makes sense for him to start because you get a hell of a lot more endurance for me, and him finishing the stations. That was the main kind of theme for all of us. I would say this is a good strategy to do. And if you need to change it on the day, then just kind of communicate with your partner. If you're doing a solo, then yeah, you're fucked. But yeah, this was the kind of this was our strategy. He done 250, I done 500, then he done 250, and we wrapped up the roar in 3 minutes 50 seconds. Pretty chuffed with that. But more importantly, we got out on that track and we ran a 4 minute 9 seconds. So this was our second quickest run, other than the first. Well, it was the first quickest run at this point. Felt good. Comparing that to Manchester, we're 4:45, right? So you can see although you can get your second wind in a race, it's nowhere near as best as kind of being reserved in your strategy. And this is what I said to Scott: once we get by that rower, that's when we'll push the runs quicker, or push the runs harder, because there is a wee bit more of recoverability. You're in the second half of the race and mentally it just feels better. Farmers carries, I think this one, like, we were actually slower again. So there's when I done Madrid, it was just up and down, but Farmers carries been 2 laps. I don't know, that kind of threw me off a bit, but a minute 18 seconds, nothing drastic, nothing crazy. Straight out that run, back to a 4:15, right, or 4:14, sorry, compared to Manchester, 4 minutes 46. So again, 30 seconds quicker here. Like, doesn't matter how strong that second win is. At this point, right, I'm 38 minutes into the race in Rotterdam, and at Manchester I'm 40 minutes in, so I'm only 2 minutes in front. But the race is generally where the most improvements are made, are in that back half, because that's where cramp starts to happen, that's where your fatigue starts to happen, that's where just the body starting to break down at that point, depending on what you've done for training. So Farmers carries into that run and then into the lunges. Lunges in Manchester felt strong, 2 minutes 38, and lunges in Rotterdam felt good as well. We got 2 minutes 21 seconds. We ripped it through that. After the lunges, though, straight into a 4 minute 20 run in Manchester. I think this is where there was that, here, this is your last run, fucking empty the tank, because we got the quickest run at this point at 4 minute 33, and I remember just giving it all. But that, again, you'll see in the next station here, where you come into wall balls, paid, like, the consequence was there, right? So in our training, we always done like 3:30 to 3:20 for our wall balls, right? That was the goal going into wall balls. In Manchester, emptying the tank, going into your wall ball station, we got 4:11, right? 4 minutes 11 seconds. Not bad, pretty good, extremely happy with it. But in Rotterdam, we ran a 4:20 on that last one. Still good, still quick, still felt strong. Didn't empty the tank as much. Came into the wall balls, stuck to the game plan, and got 3 minutes 38 seconds. So that's the sort of biggest difference. And the rock zone time obviously reflects the running part as well. But rock zone in Manchester, 5 minutes 18. Rock zone in Rotterdam, 4 minutes 2. There was elements in the rock zone probably could have ran a wee bit faster, but it is what it is. So that's the comparison from side to side from 2 races under 30 days, but dramatic difference in terms of outcomes. Like, taking the times in their own individual merits, they're fucking amazing, right? There is a hype, there's a want to try and get under the sub-hour mark, but once upon a time it was getting under an hour 10. For you, this is how the evolution of your fitness journey goes. It's like, I want this goal. right? I want that goal, but 10% better. And I want a wee bit better, and I want a wee bit better. And that's the art of continuous improvement, the whole Kaizen model. And that's what this shows, that applying a game plan, applying a strategy, and actually training smarter, or being smarter on your approach can pay off better. Because both those races, I gave it my all. But the second race, there's a dramatic difference in terms of the time. And that's the biggest, most powerful lesson I want to give to you for your upcoming event, right? I know there's, as I said, there's a want and there's a need and a desire to post a fantastic time on your Instagram and getting all these likes and comments and engagement and feel that you're part of the fitness game. But guess what? See, the fact that you're doing it, you're part of that, right? You're going to a gym, you're in a gym community, like you're in that. And being at the top, like being a quote unquote, I guess, athlete that's pursuing the top positions in the sport, they're different games. And yes, it's cool to get into, I guess, the top 1 percentile. There's a bit within me that's like, it'd be kind of cool to qualify for Worlds and go to Chicago and experience that. But at the end of the day, what I've taken away from this is, like, you cannot win the race in the first couple of stations. Where it shows up is in the back half, because we've all got that gas tank, right? Once the gas tank's empty, you need to stop and refuel. And the only way you can do that within a race is by slowing down, walking, drinking, which is all adding time onto your race. So be smart in your approach. Doesn't mean you're not training hard. Doesn't not mean you're not giving it your all. And yeah, that is my lessons for you. So I don't think there's any other like bits of advice I would give to anyone, but I'm kind of gutted we're missing Hyrox in Glasgow. It would have been pretty cool to go to that, just because you see everybody. It's the biggest hype in the fitness space just now. It's cool. Now, anyone that slags it, it's just one of those things. It's the new thing in the market. And people that tend to slag it is usually people who have got a chip in their shoulder, right? Okay, like community-wise, there's some questionable characters in it, some questionable posts, and a lot of arrogance that comes with it. But that's sport, that's fitness. It does that to you. Like we've all experienced it in training, especially if you train alone. You're lifting, you're like, I'm the fucking man. Like, holy shit, I am the boy. And then you go to one of these events and you're like, oh, I ain't the boy. But that's why it's good to go to these things, because that whole quote, if you want to run faster, run with faster people. Changing your circle, or being in a circle of people who have similar interests in where you want to pursue, that is one of the biggest things you can make to get better. And that's what this experience was for me, for Jillian, for Scott, for Sam. So Jill went and done her first solo. And again, like, there's a time in the back of her mind that she's trying to hit, but at the end of the day, it's all about experiencing that first one. She killed it. She smashed it. Sam, on the other hand, I think he just wanted to experience it, because I've never watched someone 10 minutes before they're about to race drink a coffee and eat a biscuit. He was just chilling. He was the most chilled guy ever. But watching, like, seeing the different variety of people that go into doing that race, like, there's something there for everyone. But yeah, I wanted to do this episode just to give a wee bit of feedback in terms of how that went, what the biggest difference was, and how on earth you shaved 6 minutes off your time, which is mental when you think about a race, because it wasn't if we got a really bad time in Manchester, and it wasn't if I didn't give it my all. It'd be different if I said, I had to walk around the last couple of laps because my ankle was killing me. Like, I genuinely was running. I was running as fast as I could throughout that race. And I'd done the same again in Rotterdam. It was just a bit more reserve, and had a strategy and a plan to attack on the day. So if you're doing it, if you get any questions, hit me up on Instagram at Coach Crossar. I'd love to help you out. Right, look, I'm going to kind of wrap up the podcast here, but there's one thing I want to talk about. I'm going to do a more in-depth episode, because I'm just about to wrap up the whole structure side of things. But on the 1st of April, a couple of things are happening, okay? Number one, I've had a lot of inquiries of people who want to work one-on-one with me, and it's something that I've been pretty limited on, if I'm being honest, and I hate saying no to people. And I know I've got inquiries from maybe some of you guys listening that I haven't replied to, and it's not out of ignorance or me not wanting to reply. My process of capturing information, that's a fucking dodgy way of saying it, of capturing someone that is inquiring to work with me is terrible, because it's just someone that sits in my DMs or sits in WhatsApp. And if you see my WhatsApp in my DMs, it is a fucking shit show, right? So don't take it personally. But on the 1st of April, I'm launching my kind of first next, or the next big official intake for my coaching. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to do small group personal training. I'm going to do a kind of hybrid blend of personal training and online. And I'm going to do a purely online version. So there'll be more on this, but below this video, there will be if you are interested in the small group aspect, I'm going to train 1 to 8 people. And I'm really going to try and build out this part of the business with really good coaching when it comes to the compound lifts, right? I love Hyrox. I'm not going to be a Hyrox coach. One of the best, most fundamental things that you need to grasp for your stronger, healthier future, and one of the reasons I can do so well in these sports, is because of the style that I train. And the style that I've trained for many of years has been full body, and it's been compound lifts. And many of you guys are not doing that. So I want to create a group, a kind of coaching program to take you through that personally, where I work with you one-to-one on helping you get better with those lifts, get stronger, and ultimately it's going to help you shift a bit of weight and feel better in your body composition and reap the many other rewards that comes with lifting weights. So if you're interested in that, there's 2 links below this video. There's one for those of you who can make it to the studio in Airdrie. So I'm going to run one at 6 a.m, 7 a.m, 5:30 p.m, Monday, Wednesday and Thursday and Friday as well. This will make sense when you see the timetable. But there's 30 odd spaces here to work with me in a one-to-one element. I'm predicting that these are going to go pretty fast when I do officially launch it on my Instagram. So if you're a podcast listener, if you tune into the show and you know what I'm about and you're interested in this, then fill out that form below. That doesn't mean you're committing. That just means that, here, look, give me first dibs at this. I'm potentially interested in it. We can jump on a call, and once I've got the structure ironed out, I will kind of run through it with you. The ask here is it's going to be 90 days, right? I look for 90-day commitment. And the way that I'm going to do this is you and the 7 other people who commit to the small group personal training, it's the same group that's going to go through the next 90 days. Rather than just booking in willy-nilly here and there, like, oh yeah, I'll pick a Thursday. I know that doesn't do great in terms of flexibility, but there's going to be multiple ones of these. So there's options for, I guess, different experiences or different asks. If you want to train 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, there is elements within that for you. This is something trialled at the back half of December and really, really loved it. I got great feedback, and it was just, I guess, the timing of it landing at the end of Christmas. It just felt like it didn't fall off because we came to the end of the 8 weeks that I'd done with the guys, but just became flat because it's Christmas and I've not done anything about it. But hence why 1st of April, here we go, we're back into it. So if you're interested in that, fill out that form below. If you can't make it here to the studio, but you kind of like that idea and want to go through something similar with a variety of other people who are, like-minded with the same pursuit, I'm going to do a online version of it, where rather than the one-to-one sessions, it's the calls, and there's the same kind of caliber of your nutrition, your check-ins, and all that sort of stuff that comes with it. But the goal here is to get you stronger, is to get you feeling healthier, feeling fitter, maybe losing some weight that you wanted to lose, but more importantly, keeping that off and being bought into this idea that, right, I found a different way that is more interesting to me on how I train, and that can show up in other areas of your life. So if you're interested in that, click the online version. If you're interested in the face-to-face one, click the in-person one. As I said, it's not commitment, it's just registering that you are interested. And once we get into the tail end of next week, you'll get some information on what's happening next to try and secure your spot. So with that being said, I'll wrap up today's episode. If you want to reach out. In fact, one of the next episodes I'm going to do is Q&A. We've got the hydration episode coming up. We've got electrolytes, which kind of, I guess, well, that's two in the same coming up. We've got some guest episodes coming up, but I do want to get back to some Q&A. So if you've got questions around anything with your fitness journey, anything in general, hit me up on Instagram at Coach Crossar, and I will do a Q&A episode. With that being said, I don't think there's much else happening. Wrap the podcast up here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.